Hello everyone and welcome back to Harry Ball Sports. Today I'll be breaking down my thoughts on some of the make or break players for the upcoming NFL season. First of all, it would take me a super long time to do something like this for all 32 NFL teams, so I've selected 7 of the more interesting stories to look at today. I do have some cool stuff in here though that you might not have considered or is a deeper level than the casual NFL knowledge, so I think it'll be worth sticking around for. Real quick though before we start, it has come to my attention that a real life NFL scout saw that last video I did, which on one hand, it's super cool that I've had any sort of interaction with the league. But on the other hand, I did not speak super kindly about that team in the last video. So on behalf of Harry Ball Sports, I would like to formally apologize to that team specifically. You know who you are. However, I am not apologizing to anyone else because I refuse to let outside influences taint the authenticity of what I'm doing here. However, if anybody would like to pay me to do so, I will hear you out. I don't have money like that right now, so I am fielding any and all offers. It would be cheaper to pay me to do it than to pay like ESPN to talk good about your quarterback, so we can make something happen if you're into it. But in all seriousness, to the scout that saw the video, Chris, I would love to have you on the show, man. Like a 30-minute interview about the scouting process or like how you evaluate talent in the less visually obvious positions or your career path in the league. I, as a football fan, would get so much out of that, and I think it would be an incredible, like, 6th or 8th video for this channel or something. So if you are at all interested, please reach out to me. My Instagram is in the description. You can contact me other ways. Please, Chris. That would really warm my little heart. Please, Chris. All right, on to the video. Sound effect. Starting with the Kansas City Chiefs. This may not be a super popular opinion, but I think Xavier Worthy will have the biggest impact, positive or negative, on the team in the upcoming year. Unlike in the past with the combo of a younger Travis Kelce, congrats on the engagement by the way, and a younger Tyreek Hill, the Chiefs don't really have an elite receiving core and haven't really had that in a while. I like Rashee Rice, don't get it twisted, but I can't really put a ton of trust in Hollywood Brown, and I can't speak to the rookie Jalen Royals yet, and either way it's kind of rare to find game-changing talent in the 4th round. So if they want to generate some yards and sort of stretch that defense a bit, I think Xavier Worthy is their best bet. Just in case you forgot, Xavier Worthy holds the fastest 40-yard dash time in NFL history at 4.21 seconds with a top speed of over 24 miles per hour. 24. That definitely deserves some attention here, and with any sort of consistent production at all, he could draw a lot of attention from the middle linebacker, draw some double coverage, leaving a lot more room for Kelce, Isaiah Pacheco, whoever it is, to get some extra space. The league runs a lot of cover 2 now, which can kind of limit the game-breaking potential of those pure speed guys. Like look at Tyreek Hill or Mecole Hardman, who, along with good route running, do base a lot of their game on simply blowing by the DB. But we've seen what Worthy can do. The Super Bowl was over midway through the 3rd quarter, but you better believe the Eagles weren't lining up planning to give him a 30-yard touchdown and then a 50-yard touchdown. The first of those touchdowns showed really good concentration and frankly just competitive heart to keep trying when you're down by that much. And the second touchdown demonstrated the speed that this argument is really based on, just blowing by this defense that we know is Super Bowl caliber. While he didn't have the production you would dream of from a first-round receiver, this offense was kind of struggling a bit anyways, and the scheme wasn't really built around his specific skill set. Although I don't want to say struggling, I think the offensive core went 14-1, so I don't want to misinterpret it. And side note, imagine if the Chiefs had traded up and gotten their hands on Malik Nabers or Brian Thomas Jr. in that draft. I'll also mention, Mahomes himself said he wants the team to get back to their deep passing game. So if you're the fastest player in league history, by combine standards at least, and the guy throwing the ball wants to get more splash plays downfield, I feel pretty confident in saying Worthy's rise or fall is going to have a massive impact on this offense. And honestly, I'm just excited to see Mahomes rip the ball 70 yards again. Because let's not pretend the Tyreek Hill Chiefs era wasn't some of the best football in recent memory. Moving on to the Arizona Cardinals. For them, I've selected Kyler Murray. I talked down on Marvin Harrison Jr. a little bit last video, but really he wasn't terrible, and I can't say that he's the guy who needs to step up for this offense to be effective, especially since, kind of like Xavier Worthy, the offensive play calling wasn't really built around getting him the ball, and if you're a receiver, there's only so much you can do if the scheme doesn't really help you get open. Kyler can do 90% of what this team needs to win games, but there just isn't enough talent around him to take up that last 10%, so I think since he touches the ball every single stat, he should do it. Last year, especially late in the season, there were a lot of interceptions, a lack of red zone efficiency, and that kind of stuff really hurt the team. He ended the season with only 21 touchdowns. If Kyler can keep doing what we know he can do a little bit more consistently, finishing drives, improving decision making, getting the ball to their top talent, maybe the team incorporates more design runs, then maybe they could just swing a few more of those games and end up making the playoffs. They did start 6-4, but unfortunately they followed that with a streak of 2-5. I will say though, that 6-4 run was kind of beating up on weaker teams like the Bears, the Dolphins, the Jets, the injured Niners, and they lost to a lot of the real contenders like the Bills and the Lions. So it's not like they were on a super impressive hot streak, but then again, you are supposed to win those games, and it's okay if you lose against, the Bills and Lions, those deep playoff teams. Also, Kyler's been in the league for 6 years now. He's not some, young potential quarterback. Like, he's a structural piece of this team's identity. Over the 6 years, his dedication to the game's kind of been questioned a little bit. There was an ongoing bit about the fact that Kyler's performance seems to dip after Call of Duty comes out every year. This graph shows that there's a positive increase in his quarterback rating the further we get from when Call of Duty came out. The correlation on this graph isn't super strong. I don't think from a data science perspective it's even statistically significant, but we don't see this with like Justin Herbert or Kirk Cousins. No one ever questions their dedication to the game in this way. You can also observe his completion percentage, yards per game, and the win-loss record all decrease on double XP weekends. I'm kind of getting off track here, but this does mean something. Kyler does compete in esports. He's actually a member of FaZe Clan. That's real, along with Bronny James. Not something you see a lot of other team leaders doing. I mean, look at the photo shoot. This narrative actually got so bad that in 2022, Kyler Murray's 5-year contract, $230 million extension, included a never-before-seen homework clause, stating that Kyler had to study film for at least 4 hours a week. Studying film is something good quarterbacks are going to do anyways. Guys like Tom Brady and Peyton Manning study film for hours on end every week just because it helps you win, helps you get an edge and learn the defense, and I think that comes from having a true competitive spirit. This contract specifically stated that any study done while watching TV or playing video games would not be credited towards these 4 hours, which, as you can imagine, was a PR disaster and really not a good look for the team or for Kyler. With that said, though, back to the point. If he can take on more of a leadership role, maybe that can help the team gel a little bit more, get some of the young guys to buy in a bit more, develop an offensive identity. I think that could really help the team in the coming season and kind of for the rest of his contract. Moving on to the Tennessee Titans, I selected Valerie Callahan. You don't know who that is, do you? You're not supposed to know. I don't know why you would know, but this is a great example of why you should come to me for this information. Valerie Callahan is the wife of Titans offensive line coach Bill Callahan and the mother of Titans head coach Brian Callahan. These two guys are extremely important to both the development of rookie Cam Ward and to the success of the team in general. Honestly, I can't think of anyone who has more influence in these two guys' lives than she does, so she's our make or break person for this team. Real quick, I have no reason to think that this is the same Valerie Callahan, but this woman has a lovely cover of Crocodile Rock on her YouTube channel, so you should go check that out.
I remember when Rock was young, me and Susie had so much fun, holding hands and skimming stones, had an old gold Chevy and a place of my own, but the biggest kick I ever got was doing a thing called the Crocodile Rock, while the other kids were rocking round the clock. We were hopping and bobbing to the Crocodile Rock where...
And her cover of Snowbird by Anne Murray really spoke to me. Anyways, these two guys are in a very interesting situation. For one, they're a father-son duo, which we have seen in the league before, but it's definitely rare. And this team is in a massive rebuilding year with a first overall quarterback, a guy that the fan base expects to save the organization. So there will definitely be a lot of eyes on him. These guys not only create the group of guys protecting Cam Ward from, being flattened by Max Crosby, but they also create the entire team culture. You better hope these two guys are on speaking terms at Thanksgiving. And behind every successful family lineage is a matriarch pulling all the strings. A lot of people on this list have more to do with the team's success on the field, but Valerie's kind of in a unique position to essentially control the mental well-being of an entire NFL franchise. And it's possible no one else in the world outside of the league has this level of control over the emotional stability of a team. She's not out there running routes or playing Mike linebacker, but I think she can have some sort of influence over whether the offense is more 2025 or 1995, depending on who she supports. Valerie is the secret X Factor. She is the hidden Lamar Jackson. She is the undercover Saquon Barkley. This is some serious X's and O's that you cannot find anywhere else, so be sure to come back for more of this next level intellectual analysis. Obviously this one isn't as serious, so we're going to move on. Next up we got the Atlanta Falcons. I'm going to select Michael Penix Jr. Unlike Kyler Murray, this will be Michael's first season really starting for the team after sitting behind Kirk Cousins last season. Usually when you see a young quarterback starting for the first time, it's in an offense that isn't really poised to do great things. But considering this offense definitely has the firepower it needs to win games, with players like Bijan Robinson and Drake London, his performance this season is actually really important and will have a lot of eyes on it. He took over the starting job well into last season and even looked great then. So with the extra time this offseason to form those connections, I think he's one of the players in the league who's best poised for a breakout season. Also, there's been a lot of good reports coming out about him getting along with Kyle Pitts and sort of forming that connection on and off the field, so maybe we can actually see him getting the ball sometimes this season and finally live up to that reputation of who people think he can be. Additionally, I can't really see Atlanta going back to Kirk Cousins or having much success there if they did. Plus, he revealed in a Netflix show that he was playing through an injury for a lot of last season. So that lack of a super appealing backup option and the amount of just investment in Penix that we've seen puts even more pressure on him as the make or break player. Next up is the Baltimore Ravens. We're going to look at Kyle Hamilton. Obviously, I'm usually an offense-first guy, but I think this Ravens offense has things pretty much figured out, as long as it's not a playoff game. And there really hasn't been too many major changes there, besides bringing in a 33-year-old DeAndre Hopkins. So I think looking to this defense is our best bet for the question of make-or-break players. First of all, Hamilton is just good. He was ranked 51st best player in the league for 2025 by the NFL themselves. And there aren't a whole lot of defensive players that low on the list, especially in the secondary. Considering how Hamilton can pretty much line up anywhere in the secondary, he can play deep safety, he can play in the slot, he can line up right on the line for some man-to-man, he can even take on some linebacker responsibilities. He's just an anchor to this defense, and he allows him to have a lot of flexibility. He can get to the quarterback, he can defend the pass, he can cause a fumble. He's just a joy to watch. And if you watch the NFL's video on why he's number 51, it's almost like his teammates are in love with him in that video. It's cute. Part of the reason why he's a make-or-break player is because this defense really needs to be good to win games. Because again, their offense isn't the problem. Especially this year because Derrick Henry and Mark Andrews are as young as they're ever going to be. And right now, Lamar is still playing to a ridiculously high standard. And as a super mobile quarterback, that can't last forever. Not saying Lamar's going to fall off a cliff anytime soon, but Super Bowl windows don't tend to last long at all. Plus, they're going to see the Bengals twice a year, who create a lot of their offense with those downfield passes. And like I said earlier, the Chiefs, who they are very likely to see in the playoffs, are leading that direction as well. Their secondary is as important as ever right now, especially considering the other talent in the AFC. I've seen analysts list him as the Ravens' most important non-quarterback player, which is a huge deal. If he were to get injured, I don't know if I see the Ravens filling that hole super effectively. And if he continues to play at this level or somehow elevates it, I can't see a lot of ways to beat the Ravens. Their offense just puts up a ton of points and in kind of a demoralizing way. Like imagine Derrick Henry just running through your entire defense in one play, or thinking you have a coverage sack to see Lamar pick up and scramble for 30 plus yards. If you're down even 2 scores, you might have to start passing against them. And with their first round safety Malachi Starks learning from Hamilton, and the recent addition of Jair Alexander, I just can't really see that going super well. So I just hope Kyle Hamilton can stay healthy. And speaking of stay healthy, next up is the San Francisco 49ers. We're going to talk about Dustin Little today. And if you don't recognize him either, then don't worry. I doubt you've ever seen him before, and you aren't really supposed to hear about a guy in his position in the first place. But Dustin Little is the head of sports medicine for the 49ers. And with the injury history on this team, he's got to find some way to keep these guys on the field. Last season was an uncharacteristically poor season for the team, mostly because of those injuries. And remember, this team just made the Super Bowl and then fell to 6-11. Christian McCaffrey, who was drafted first overall a ton in fantasy last year, dealt with Achilles tendonitis in both legs. Then just a month into his return, he sprained his knee and was out for the rest of the year. Just in the offseason, they've already lost so many players that they've churned through 26 signings in camp just to stay afloat. That's 26 of a 53-man roster. And these aren't just a bunch of third stringers either. These are some pretty important names for the team. You got Nick Bosa, Juwan Jennings, backup quarterback Mac Jones, Brandon Ayuk, Trey Brown is out for the season. Their starting right tackle's out for a few weeks. They had 2 running backs go down in the preseason, and I can only assume those guys were there to take some of the load off Christian McCaffrey. And to top it all off, Demarcus Robinson is on a 3-game suspension. At this point, I may genuinely have a shot to play wideout for the 49ers. I could start practicing some curl routes and like a deep post and statistically have a decent chance of making the team. I kind of worry they won't actually have enough players to legally play NFL games this year. And it's not just this season either. They've been one of the top 10 most injured teams every year since 2018 except one. This includes 2 seasons at number 1 on the list, a season at number 3, and a season at number 4. At some point you have to think it's not just bad luck, like there's a hex on the practice field or something. I mean, last year Ricky Pearsall was literally shot in the chest just before the season. Ironically though, you know who this team could really use? Deebo Samuel, the longtime Niner they just sent to the Commanders for only a 5th round pick. I think holding on to him would have really helped in their super shallow receiver pool this year. So as head of sports medicine, something has to be done. These injuries are obviously the biggest thing holding this team back, and the hypothetical roster is great, but the hypothetical wins don't show up on the record. I don't know a single thing about sports medicine, but I think if I were in charge of athlete health for the 49ers for the last 6 years, I'd be preparing a plan B career-wise. Of course, the blame can't all go on one guy, but I think Dustin Little's a good figurehead for the real issue with this team, and I just want to see good football, man. I want to see stars play. We're going to finish up today by talking about the Dallas Cowboys and Micah Parsons. This one is unique because the make or break element of this is kind of entirely self-inflicted. Micah Parsons is another guy that acts as an anchor for the entire rest of the defense. And while that might mean something else for the D-line than it does for the secondary, I would argue his potential impact on a game is even greater than a guy like Kyle Hamilton or Patrick Surtain. He's only been in the league since 2021, but he's already racked up a ton of awards. Stuff like Defensive Rookie of the Year, 2 first-team All-Pros, and he's made the Pro Bowl every single year he's been in the league. And by the way, there's more awards I'm not reading. Also, he's been quoted as saying he has his bachelor's in rushing and is looking to get his PhD, which doesn't really mean anything, but that is the kind of talk you want to hear from your superstar defensive end. Some of the biggest news this offseason has been Parsons' unique contract situation, and with what I've told you about him so far, you might think he's a no-brainer to re-sign, but the Cowboys kind of have a way of horribly and publicly screwing up these negotiations. They're known for essentially kicking the can down the road and waiting as long as possible to sign these guys, and I don't really know why they do that. Because what ends up happening is other elite guys in those same positions get paid, and then the Cowboys, since they waited so long, have to either beat or match those offers. So they end up paying a lot more to keep their guys. This is exactly what happened with CeeDee Lamb last season. I'm not going to give you all the details, but to summarize Micah Parsons' contract situation, Micah and team owner Jerry Jones had a casual conversation in March about the upcoming contract negotiations. And according to Jerry, he offered Micah what would be the highest non-quarterback contract in the entire league, which we have no way of confirming. And at that point, Jerry just kind of considered the negotiation already done. He went on Michael Irvin's podcast and said this.
Yeah, Mike and I talked. We had our agreements on term, amount, guarantees, everything. And the agent said, don't bother because we've got all that to negotiate. Well, I'd already negotiated. I'd already moved off my mark. We've had the negotiation in my mind.
So in Jerry's mind, that was the end of the story, I guess. And just so we're all on the same page, that is not a contract negotiation. That's Jerry Jones blatantly violating the NFL's collective bargaining agreement, which clearly states that contract negotiations with players who have NFL-certified agents should only be done with those agents, not the players themselves. So from Micah Parsons' perspective, Jerry Jones just kind of mumbled a number at him in March, and then as team owner, he's taking that as a legally binding agreement. At the time of this recording, Parsons is still holding in. Holding in is the process of showing up physically to practice into games but refusing to play, often until like an injury is healed. But really this is just done until the team reaches a contract the player is happy with. Claiming injury is actually a very common technique in the modern NFL. The hold out used to be a lot more popular, where a player simply wouldn't show up at all, but that can have other consequences and demonstrates an obvious bad faith towards the team. But Parsons has even gone so far as to be seen napping on the trainer's table during their last preseason game. When a player of this caliber is dealing with a situation this stupid, the NFL contract dispute culture kind of says he's well within his right to do this. And we can see these hold-ins work great for a lot of guys. Think Terry McLaurin and Trey Hendrickson, other big stars at their position who held out for more money, and just recently got those contracts they were looking for. That's because those teams saw their true value, they wanted to treat their guy well, and they didn't have ego holding them back from on-the-field success. Jerry Jones is doing peak Jerry Jones stuff. He's parading around his role in this dispute, seemingly unaware of how he's coming off, and unaware that the general football audience does in fact understand how these negotiations are supposed to go. And just for some extra context, the Cowboys defense was rated 31st overall in points allowed last year, and 28th in yards allowed. That's bad, by the way. So just know that it wasn't even like the team was doing great before. He's one of the best in the league, he has all those awards, and he recorded 12 sacks and 10 tackles for loss last season. A lot of analysts say that he should be one of the highest paid non-quarterbacks in the league. And the thing is, he has some pretty good leverage in the situation. That leverage being he's the one super bright spot in a super bad defense. It's widely understood that this team just can't win without him. This situation has to be resolved somehow, and I know the result's going to have an incredible impact on the team's success, not only this season but long term. Losing Parsons leaves an obvious gap in the D-line, but also in the morale of the team, not to mention that the fans' patience is running super thin with the Cowboys, especially this year, and I worry that Jerry Jones' ego will just let their playoff hopes walk out the door. I always like seeing a guy get paid what he deserves, but I can't really say that I want Parsons to get this money in Dallas. He could field offers from Seattle or Buffalo, or imagine him in an Eagles jersey playing against them week 1. So about 10 minutes ago, Micah Parsons was just traded to the Green Bay Packers, which is a huge deal, but I guess just disregard the entire last point I was making there in the video. Congratulations to him. Congratulations to Green Bay. I just wish you guys could have waited like 24 more hours to do that, because that's kind of a disrespect to Harry Ball Sports and to me personally. But I guess do what you're going to do. With that said, that is all for today. Thank you very much for watching. I tried something a bit different here, something a bit more edited and more thought out, going into a bit more research detail rather than just, here's my thoughts for 50 minutes. I'm probably going to keep trying out these different styles and see what works best for me. Like the video, send it to your dad or whatever. This has been Harry Ball Sports. See you next week. Go Birds.